So
like that's just gonna be the title of this episode is like people were upset, honestly, a thing happened, people were upset, we tried something else, people were upset.
Narrator, everything was not fine.
Yes.
Yeah. We're gonna throw shit at the wall. And that shit is gonna be NFTs and it's gonna be GameStop.
It's not just an extractive environment. It's like people do it because they love it.
I'm freaking myself out right now. Who are the 10 people that you would invite to dinner, living or dead? You're actually gonna be able to do it.
That is crazy.
It's pretty freaking cool.
Hypothetically speaking, exactly.
Okay, so it's in your belly now. And then if you spend enough goo, hopefully your favorite president, better than Lincoln, better than Washington. Well, how could we have known? Like, what could have happened?
We can tell it's going to be a $20 trillion opportunity.
I think he's a sociopath.
I'll armchair psychologist this shit. Like getting into the club is like actually the one area where women have actually outpaced men.
Thank you, Carly, for being a great impact to this space and spreading a really good message and bullish on whatever you do next.
I feel like we're gonna clip that shit. Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs, the last episode of Overpriced JPEGs for all of 2022. Sayonara 2022. May 2023 be much better. If you are listening to this the day it airs, it is December 30th. We are just days away from the new year. I hope everyone is having a restful and happy holidays. On today's episode, we're going to do two things. First, we are going to look back at 2022. Specifically, we're going to look back at some of the predictions that were made last year, this time last year, by some guests of the show for their predictions for 2022. We're going to see how folks did. And then we are going to look ahead at 2023, turn the chapter and see what do folks think we have in store for this coming year. So you are officially in the second annual Overpriced Predictions episode, and it's all going to start right after we hear a word from these lovely, lovely sponsors.
When it comes to NFTs, convenience often wins over security, despite scams being everywhere. Brands and artists have no other choice by complying with big marketplace terms and weak security because no good alternative exists. Which is what prompted Ledger to fix the problems of NFTs themselves and launch Ledger Market. The Ledger Market provides an end-to-end secure NFT experience for brands, artists, and users, enabling true ownership and control over NFT assets, from minting to storing. Ledger Market secures NFT projects via Ledger Enterprise, keeping you protected from phishing attacks and scams. And the market directs users to Ledger Live, where they can transact with a contract directly, giving clear signing details instead of blind signing and praying. Don't trust, verify with clear signing from Ledger Market. Stay up to date on the latest drops and marketplace updates by following Ledger on Twitter and joining the Ledger Open Discord, which is linked in the show notes below. BUENO is the NFT toolkit you need to launch your digital collectible on the blockchain without coding. Every step of the NFT creation process, from generation to mint, all taken care of by the BUENO NFT toolkit. With BUENO, you can load up your art layers, reorder the layers, tinker with rarity, everything you need to make your NFT project a reality. BUENO even allows you to mint your tokens on the blockchain with zero code and offers advanced minting logic like linking allow lists, airdropping tokens, and on-chain royalty configuration. As a part of their launchpad, you'll get access to forums to run surveys, email collection, and build your pre-sale list to make sure you are hooked into your own community. BUENO is full of powerful tools you need to build the most expressive NFT project possible. So go to bueno.art and start building your own collections today.
This time last year, I was joined by a series of awesome guests who gave their predictions for 2022, the year that has now passed. So we're going to take a look back at some of those predictions. I'm not going to go through everything. If you want to know every prediction that was made, you can go watch the hour-long episode yourself. We'll link to it below. But I'm going to call out a couple predictions, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you might. So the very first prediction that I want to call out is actually, it was so good, it was so bad it was good, is how I would describe it. This came to us from William Peaster, who is the author of Metaversal, the newsletter over at Bankless. He writes broadly in other publications about NFTs and Web3. Awesome, super smart dude with one bad prediction for 2022. Let's hear it.
From William Peaster, he says, the big prediction I have for 2022 is that Cool Cats Pets will help catapult Cool Cats into a top 3 NFT collection behind Punks and Apes for a time.
Okay, obviously this was a very bad prediction by William, but I say it's so bad it's good in that for two reasons. First, I really respect somebody who will give a specific prediction. I will give so much credit to anyone who is willing to make a prediction that bold. Like, kudos to William. Second, he was kind of right in the sense that Cool Pets was a really seminal moment for the Cool Cats project. And no, it didn't catapult them into the stratosphere and make them the third most popular project behind Punks and Meebits. It did the exact opposite. It basically catapulted them into oblivion. Other factors there, Cooltopia, etc. But he had his finger on an important pulse, which is that Cool Pets was going to mean something significant to Cool Cats. William, thank you for that prediction. We don't have a prediction from William this year, but I'll hit him up again next year because I think that was an awesome one and I want more like that. I also had Jean-Paul Faraj on the show who made a very accurate prediction, unfortunately for the rest of us. Take a listen.
Okay, so I think we're going to have, this is a scary one, but I think we're going to have like quite a few months of like our NFTs dead talk. That's for sure. Like if I have to pick one of my predictions that I think is going to happen, I think we might have a scare time in 2022 of like, oh no, is this all just a scam?
Yeah, I give Jean-Paul Faraj credit. I think he nailed this. I mean, within the space, those of us who are super, super deep, I don't think we ever really feared that NFTs were dead. And I've made the comment several times on this show that if you were to tell me that crypto and NFTs were going to totally crash this year and that Bored Apes would still have a 70 ETH floor, I would have been like, oh my God, we're in great shape. So I never at this point this year thought NFTs are dead, but I think we have to mark this prediction as a win because certainly the rest of the world not just asked if they were dead, pronounced that they were dead. Everyone has just conviction that they are dead if you are not in this space and seeing that, well, clearly they are not dead. So Jean-Paul, I think this was a great prediction. Jean had another good prediction actually that we are going to shout out here, which is that he said that traditional assets would start to leverage the blockchain. And he called out specifically, he said there'd be a mortgage deed or a house that would be on chain. And he was right. We had the first sale of a house as an NFT earlier this year. It was a house in Florida back in February that sold on auction as an NFT. We also had a couple others. I mean, we had the Fire Festival Island that is being sold or was attempted to be sold. Maybe it did sell as like NFTs. It was being carved up and sold as NFTs. I almost think this doesn't help our case. I don't think the Fire Festival Island and NFTs being in the same sentence is really a win for us. But Jean-Paul Faraj was right on this one as well. Jean-Paul, congratulations. You hit these two out of the park. This next prediction by Jeremy, co-founder of the Deadheads Project, is a little harder to assess. Was he right or was he wrong? We'll play the prediction and then I'll give you my thoughts.
I think if the PFP wave were to fall down a little bit, we'll see the Bored Ape Yacht Club have a 50% or greater drop if the macros no longer favor it.
Okay, so on the surface, I feel like Jeremy was wrong because Bored Apes are up from where they were when he made this prediction. They had like a 60 ETH floor, 50 ETH floor late last December, and they now have a 65, 70 ETH floor today as we talk about this. But on the other hand, he was right in that he had an assumption that the PFP meta would probably topple a bit and would probably fall off, which certainly happened. PFPs definitely are not as hot now. They can't be just a PFP. There have to be a lot more than that. And Bored Apes did technically fall by 50% this year. If you consider that the height of the Bored Ape floor was in April of this year at about 140 odd some ETH, and now it's again back down to 65, 70 ETH. So, I give him partial points for this one, but it felt like the spirit of his prediction was if PFPs fall, Bored Apes are going to fall. And I don't really feel like that's entirely what happened. I think a lot of PFPs fell and Bored Apes actually stood apart as a project that, I don't know, weathered that storm exceptionally well, maybe better than arguably any other project. So partial points there, Jeremy. Then there was Zeneca. Zeneca gave us a whole slew of predictions last year, and he did pretty well. To help us dissect how Zeneca did in his predictions for 2022, we are joined by Zeneca. Danica, welcome to Overpriced JPEGs. We are going to do something a little different with you than some of our other guests for today's show because you were on our predictions episode last year. So I want us to just quick take a look back at some of the predictions you made last year. And maybe we'll do a minute or two on them and then talk about your predictions for 2023.
Sounds good. I'm a little afraid.
So, no, you did well.
Okay.
we'll grade how each of the predictions did. You started with gaming NFTs exploding.
I think gaming NFTs, like we've sort of seen them explode towards the end of this year, 2021. That's just going to continue happening. Like it's just such a huge industry, multi-$100 billion industry, and it's just like barely touched the NFT space yet. I think at the moment we're going through this phase where everyone, like play to earn is like the hot topic, the buzzword basically, and everyone is trying for it, but it's very difficult to create a sustainable play to earn ecosystem just because if people are earning, then that's money coming out of the ecosystem. Money needs to be put in somehow, and just figuring that out, it's very, very difficult. So I think what might happen is that the first few months is a lot of people launch these play to earn games, and then we start to see them fizzling out because money dries up, and then we go to some other sort of system where it's like I've heard people describe it as play and earn, where like earning isn't the great like it isn't the main goal. It's just like the game is really fun, and there's some way to earn, but it's like it's capped, it's limited. It's not like no one's making a living off these games, but it's like, and I myself have thought of it from the perspective of it might not even need to be play and earn. It's just play and not lose, or play and earn your assets. Like currently people play games a lot and they pay for these skins, and it's kind of like they're losing the money. They have no ownership of it. But if it's play and own your assets, then you could, sell it and move to another game or whatever it is.
So I give you some credit here because I think the play to earn narrative had not been like fully debunked by December. I think Axie had definitely had a bit of a fall from grace, and I think the hack had happened at that point, the Ronin hack. But there was still like play to earn was still sort of a part of the conversation, and you were definitely not just like all in on play to earn. I tried to figure out how to really assess if gaming NFTs exploded. But I do a podcast with Immutable X, so I feel like I hear about gaming NFTs all the time. So for me, it feels valid, like a reasonably good prediction. How do you feel about that prediction?
I feel reasonably good about it as well. I wouldn't say they exploded, but like relative to the market, I think they did fairly well. We look at, other side, you can say what you want, whether that's even considered a gaming NFT, but like Daigaku, I can never pronounce that right. Wolf Game has gone bonkers over the last month or so. I think Parallel is still doing fairly well. And obviously on Immutable, there's been a bunch of stuff happening. So yeah, not exploded, but
Arbitrum has had some gaming stuff that's done really well that people are into. Yep. I agree. I think fair. Do you have any thoughts on gaming for 2023?
I'm actually getting a little more bearish on gaming in general, gaming NFTs because I've realized that a lot of people play games for entertainment and to escape reality and to avoid stress. And as soon as you incorporate NFTs and crypto and money into the equation, it introduces an element of stress. And even if it's not play to earn, if it's play and own, I wrote about this I think a couple months ago. It's like if you think about like the thought process of, all right, you don't like play and earn is terrible. No one wants to play a game to earn a few dollars an hour and then feel like they're grinding for rent money or something like that. That gets all the fun out of a game. But even if it's just play and own, like you play a game, it's totally free. You happen to, get a rare sword and you now own it. And if you choose, you can sell it or you can transfer it to another game. Let's say the sword is worth $20 and you're like, well, I don't want to sell it. It's my sword. I like it. And then the next day it goes up to $50 and you're like, oh, that's kind of nice. Maybe I should sell, but no, I like it. I'm going to keep it. And then the day after it's down to $10. And all of a sudden now you're like, oh, I should have sold. And all this stress and anxiety is introduced into like, you just want to play a game and not really think about making financial decisions. And I think that is where potentially the whole NFT being, you have ownership of all your items and that you can sell them. I realize a lot of people don't want that. And so maybe I'm getting a little bearish in general on that. But I think basically we'll see a divergence where I think there'll be a very strong community of gamers who just don't want any ownership, which is totally fine. Like that, you want to play a game and have a centralized party own your assets and you pay money for entertainment and you have nothing at the end of the day. I think that's totally fine. But I think we'll also see people who really do want to own and really want to lean into the gamification, where it's like you can make money or you can own your asset and take it from one world to another. And so we'll see both. But I think overall, I'm a little more bearish than I was last year.
The way I've thought about it, and I think that's true, and I remember saying that last year when the play to earn narrative was falling apart, one of the things is like, if you make a hobby a living, you take some of the fun out of the hobby. And so I'm definitely sympathetic to that argument. And I think you just laid that out well and even took it a step further maybe than how I was thinking about it in like a debunking play to earn model. But like, to me, in the physical world, if you buy toys or if you buy anything, you can have a garage sale and sell them and make 30 cents on that toy. And, at the end of the garage sale, you've made $100 and you can put that towards that new toy. That's sort of how I've always conceptualized it. Is like, we should at a minimum have that, right? Of like, digital ownership means that you can have a digital garage sale and it's not about making money on something. It's about subsidizing the experience you had with it. And I think we're still in, as much as we've started to move away from just like the financialization, everything is about speculation. We have a long way to go to really getting to a point where this is truly just about digitally owning something. And it's truly just about like having a thing and you can play with it and it's the fun of playing with the thing online or whatever, and it's not about making the money on it. So I think we could see that in gaming, but point well taken. Second prediction, DAOs will take off.
I think DAOs are going to be huge. Like, we've started to see them take off a bit more in 2021. Like, it was sort of like a phase a few months ago, which is still going now, where people say, hey, we're going to launch a project with a DAO. Now we're seeing these airdrops, SOS DAO, Gas DAO, like people are dropping, and the DAOs still haven't really been fully fleshed out in terms of like a legal framework and just like using them to their full potential. I think that there are a few that are doing really well, but like we're going to see a lot more take off.
Ooh.
You said this might be 2023 or 2024, and you cited Flamingo DAO and Olympus DAO in particular as DAOs that were doing some interesting things in 2023.
Olympus DAO,
2020,
wow.
2021.
Yeah, that was a big oops moment. Definitely lost a lot of money there. Flamingo DAO has done fantastically. I think they've been around and they've been doing well, investing into Gen Art, 101 art infrastructure. Ape DAO, bit of a mess all year. Yeah, I think DAOs are very interesting and fascinating and will be massive at some point in the future. I think that we probably need several more years to figure out how to like effectively organize people and incentivize people, because a lot of DAOs struggle from people just don't turn up to vote and then people aren't incentivized to be building for it. And it's just like figuring out those structures and how to actually get stuff done in a DAO manner. I think we're a while away from figuring out.
And AI could play interesting roles here. I think somebody was saying this again on the call we were on yesterday, of like having AIs who can look and evaluate who's really contributing most to a community, and there could be something interesting there. Yeah, I would say this was a little bit more of a miss. I'd give you more credit on the gaming one.
Yeah.
This next one was a good one. AI NFTs. You said artificial intelligence NFTs, but artificial intelligence broadly, you thought that was going to be big. That's certainly a salient prediction for where we are right now. But throughout the year, you've had interesting generative kind of AI eponym. Although, was that 2021? I was blurring.
Eponym had just happened, I think, in like November, December last year, which is probably why it was front of mind. I am actually surprised I said AI last year, because in my mind, my interest in AI, I had some interest then. Actually, one of my first NFTs bought was actually a piece of AI art on OpenSea, but it's like the last 3 or 4 months I've been going absolutely crazy for AI, but good on me for predicting it last year.
Good on you.
Yeah.
You said VR might be too early, but AR, I don't think this was as good of a one. I don't think we saw a lot of VR AR this year.
Not much there.
And you knew might be too early. This next one's a great one though. Generative art sees a resurgence.
I did have one more. It's all right. It's generative art. I think is going to like see another resurgence. I mean, I think we've seen generative art like explode in 2021. Like it really took off. Obviously, art blocks had a crazy year, and then in the last few months we've seen a lot of like, you can call them competitors or just other options for generative art between Gen.art. I think Proof released their own platform. And on the Tezos network, there's FX Hash, which is getting a ton of attention, and that's awesome, and collectors and creators are loving it. It's just such a perfect use case of blockchain technology and art that I think we really are still just at the very early stages of it. So what we've seen in 2021 is just like a tiny percentage of what we're going to see in the next decade. And it's going to, just 2022 is going to be a big year for generative art.
Got my Art Blocks hat on. I got my FX hash shirt. I am a Gen Art maxi, and I will die on this hill.
Yep, that was great. I give you an A for that one. This next one was bad. It was a macro prediction.
I think that because we're still so early, I mean, we all love to say how early we are, and that's true, but that doesn't mean that all the projects and NFTs that exist today are going to be worth more in the future. Like, most of them are not. But I do think that the market is going to be good and healthy in 2022. Like, I may end up eating my words, but I don't foresee like an 8-month bear market where it's just like doom and gloom, and more people will come to see what you and I and most of the listeners, I presume, see, that this is really revolutionary and like life-changing. It's just a game changer on so many different levels. So I don't really foresee the market doing poorly. I think NFTs are going to have another great year in 2022.
That is exactly the opposite of what happened. April is like
was literally an 8-month bear market.
God. So you know how when it's almost like impressive to get something that wrong and that accurately wrong. So I'm gonna take solace in that. Oops.
NFT loans could cause a major downturn. I don't know how to evaluate this one. I think there was an instinct there that was right. I don't think, and there was some fear this year. We had a couple of moments where people were worried about apes that had been lent, and so I would say this was a reasonable one. It turns out I don't think there was like enough leverage on NFTs for this to be a problem.
I think
but I think had there been more leverage on NFTs, you would have been right.
Yeah, my prediction, I guess it was multifaceted. It was like a bull run plus lending would just like add fuel to this collateralized thing, and that crash would be crazy. But in a bear market, there just wasn't that much lending happening, and the effects were a little mollified. So, and I think the lending platforms didn't quite, we didn't see like the full extent of them as I was kind of expecting. I think maybe that's a 2023 thing now.
This next one was great. And I would say we'll end our look back on your predictions with a high note.
Any thoughts or predictions on the Coinbase marketplace, what that will be, what the effects will be?
I don't think it will be the OpenSea killer that people think it's going to be. I'll just say that. I do know that there are other marketplaces coming out that might be that. So that's my diplomatic way of answering and not answering it. And I hope I'm wrong, but I think people will be a little disappointed with it. But it's sort of kind of, they have to do things a certain way because they're a publicly listed company and all this kind of other stuff. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but I think people have expectations that can't possibly be met, basically.
If you remember back in December, like that was a big deal because they had whatever it was, like 4 million wallets, 2 million wallets had signed up, or people had signed up on the wait list for the Coinbase NFT marketplace. So like, I look back on the episode I did last year, and I made like a bear case and a bull case for 2022. And in my bull case, I was like, well, Coinbase marketplace, like that was like a thing people were so excited about. And gosh, what a nothing burger that ended up being.
It like just instantly flopped. There was just no one using it. It was a shame.
Yeah. It was fascinating how quickly it just felt like the momentum on that died. But so you were clearly right there. So I would give you, I think 50-50, I think
I'll take it.
Is sort of where you landed, which I think is pretty good. And the ones that hit pretty well. And then the ones that, there was a couple that missed pretty.
Owen was a real bad one. Yeah.
To be fair, it wasn't in the context of like Ohm's going to be great next year. You said you thought DAOs were going to be big and take off, and I asked, do you have any DAOs you want to call out that you think are an example of that are doing it? And
well, in their defense, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're still around. They're still doing what they said they would do, and they didn't go to zero because they had some collateral backing them. So I don't know. That's clutching at straws here, but yeah.
Hey, nobody can bat 1,000. Thank you to everyone who gave predictions last year for 2022. Congrats to those of you who nailed it. Better luck next time to those of you who missed. It's all luck. We're all just guessing here. And now I want to close out our look back section by calling out what I think were the biggest trends, the major milestones, the most important defining features of 2022 in the NFT and Web3 markets. So here we go. I think number one, the most important thing that happened this year, and it may be not one you expect because it's not explicitly NFT focused, but it's the merge. It's gotta be the merge. That was such an incredible technical feat that the Ethereum developers pulled off. It has done so much for the space when you think about it. Maybe hasn't fully done it yet because it hasn't penetrated the outside market, but this turns the tide on the environmental narrative that has permeated and held back this space for so long. We have turned a corner that is massive. Energy reduction by 99% or whatever we're at these days. And I think the bigger piece is if they hadn't pulled off the merge, that would have been a death sentence. And so it's not just what did the merge allow us to do, it's what did having the merge prevent, which was preventing not having the merge, which would have been horrendous for Ethereum. So number one, the most defining element of 2022, the merge. Number two, these are not per se in order, though roughly in order. Yuga Labs and Proof Collective, Proof Inclusive, that means Moonbirds, et cetera. We'll get to that. Yuga Labs came into 2022 obviously as a leading project, but there was a chance that they didn't leave 2022 the leading project, and they certainly have. Over the course of 2022, Yuga Labs bought CryptoPunks and Meebits out from under Larva Labs. I feel like we take that for granted now, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months on, whatever we are, but like that was huge. CryptoPunks was the other top 2 project, and they own them now as Yuga Labs. They raised $450 million. They launched the Other Side metaverse. They made their plans for a metaverse clear. Again, going into 2022, I didn't know they were going to do that. I didn't know they were going to throw down the gauntlet the way they have, being like, we are going to create the fun metaverse. We're going to do it. We're going to make the place that everyone wants to come hang out, Ready Player One, whatever. They launched that plan. They then launched a beta test where 4,500 people concurrently existed together in one space online, which is a huge technical feat, and all the credit to Improbable for pulling that off. They launched ApeDAO and ApeCoin and their metaverse money. And did I mention they raised $450 million? That is $500 million they raised. I mean, this was the year of Yuga. They had some missteps with Other Side. They had some missteps in the way they communicated out about things. But by and large, they absolutely dominated this year. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep it up in 2023. But this was majorly a year of Yuga. I also mentioned Proof because this time last year, Proof was nothing but a collective of 1,000 people that much of the NFT space didn't really know about. It was like this best kept secret in NFT land that there was this Proof collective and a lot of people had missed the mint. It was this Dutch auction, etc. And of course, they became a stratospheric project this year between Moonbirds and Oddities and Grails and everything they've done. It has been a huge year for Moonbirds, for Proof, for Kevin Rose. And they definitely need a shout out in terms of milestone moments, milestone projects for 2022. And speaking of Proof and Moonbirds, to show how important they've been to this cultural conversation, that gets us to number 3, CC0. Talk about a trend, a milestone, an important moment for NFTs this past year, the conversation around rights and IP and ownership. Bored Apes, of course, kicked this off in 2021 by giving the IP rights of individual apes to the holders, but it went into overdrive in 2022 as we really started to have a conversation as a community about this. And sure, maybe there were some mistakes in how the Moonbirds CC0 announcement was made, but you got to give them credit for starting a big conversation, a conversation that had sort of been happening, but really, really went into overdrive with the Proof Moonbirds decision to make that CC0. And if you missed it this year, you should really go check out the conversation, the panel that I hosted with a whole slew of IP attorneys talking about CC0, talking about rights. We'll link to it in the show notes. It's a great one. You can also see the CC0 debate that I hosted with DC Investor, Jimmy.eth, Zeneca was on that one. Some great people debating CC0 and the merit there. Derek Edwards. We'll link to both those. You should definitely go check them out if you missed them this year. Of course, the conversation did not stay on CC0 for all too long because nothing stays for long in this space. It quickly moved on, and it moved on to the creator royalty debate. This has really been the defining debate of the last 4 months, 5 months. I don't need to rehash it here. Y'all know it's been happening. We've been talking about it on this show, and I would say the creator royalty conversation and the marketplace wars are really a defining feature of 2022. And I'm optimistic. I'm more optimistic than I was earlier in this year. I think I give OpenSea a lot of credit for the decision they made. It wasn't popular at every point. They're still not popular for reasons I can't fully understand. But what they have done is change the business incentives. So you're seeing other marketplaces now saying, okay, you have to enforce royalties because that's the way that we can play ball. So credit to OpenSea there. Big conversation. I'm sure it'll continue into 2023. Number 5, another milestone, another big thing that happened in 2022 was the free meta. This was kicked off in many ways by Goblin Town. I think these should be mentioned in the same breath. Goblin Town was such an important feature of 2022, as was the free meta. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later when I get into what this means for 2023. But 2021 was the year of value extraction. It was such an extractive space to be in. And 2022, I would call the year of value neutrality. And you see that with things like this free meta where it was like, hey, this is free, come mint it. We're not promising you anything other than some Twitter spaces with weird voices. Like that's what we're offering here. But in return, we're also not asking you to pay anything for this. They maybe take a secondary royalty thing, but that's out of our hands. We did not charge you for this thing. We promise nothing. You expect nothing. We expect you to pay nothing. That was sort of the theme. Interesting meta. I'm sure we will see free mints for many, many years to come. That is not going anywhere. Number 6, and we are getting close to the end here, folks. I have 2 more after this, and we'll keep it fairly quick. Number 6 of milestones, important things that I really want us to take a pause and reflect on from 2022 is Polygon. Whew! Polygon deserves a shout out, or more specifically, the Polygon biz dev and marketing teams deserve a shout out. They put in work this year in a year of a bear market. At every turn, you were hearing announcements about Polygon. Some of them may be as big as they seem. Some of them may not be that big. I think of like the Disney announcement. Disney was exploring some Polygon stuff. I don't think that one is actually as big as maybe it felt in the moment. But we have a whole bunch of other ones that I'm about to announce because that leads us to number 7, which was like the year of the serious corporates. And by serious corporates, I mean the big institutions, the big corporations who entered the space smart and seriously. There are still plenty of companies that are entering the space not smart or not seriously, but there are some who have done it really right. And by and large, they did it on Polygon. So I'm going to shout out here as number 7, the milestones, the players we need to shout out: Reddit, Instagram, Nike, Starbucks. Congratulations to those 4. I'm not saying those are the only ones who have done it right. There are others I'm sure that are doing awesome things. There are others that are doing awesome things, but these 4 are really stand out in terms of their commitment to the space and, in my opinion, doing something that is pushing the space forward in a positive way. We'll see if they all continue to push it forward in a positive way or in the years to come, but I give them credit for 2022, and I think we would be remiss if we did not talk about them in a 2022 roundup. And last but not least, number 8, we have art blocks, the gift that keeps on giving in the world of NFTs. And Zeneca, I'm sure, would behead me if I did not mention art blocks. We'll talk about it again a little bit later when we get to his predictions for 2023. But art blocks had a year, and they had a year in 2021. They had a year in 2022. Feels like they'll probably have a year in 2023. Generative art is on the rise. With the rise of AI, it just feels like there's only going to be more appreciation for this kind of computer man blended works. And art blocks slayed. They had a lot of big moments despite the bad market, and you got to shout them out for it. So this leads us to, of course, what are the big themes of 2023 going to be? I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then we are once again going to hear from some of the friends of the pod on what they think you and me and the rest of us can expect for 2023. So I started to talk about this earlier, but in my mind, 2021 was the year of value extraction. It was free money. It was pay me for this JPEG and then I'll maybe deliver you something. And it was not good for the ecosystem. 2022, of course, that was no longer possible. Everything collapsed. And so you couldn't extract value for nothing. And that gets us to what I was calling the year of value neutrality. There was still some value being created. There were some people doing some interesting things. You could find value in places like art blocks, of course. But there was also a tremendous amount of value destruction. Not really balanced each other out. I mean, probably more on the destruction side than on the creation side. But we needed that kind of cleansing. And we got some things like the free meta that kept things kind of neutral, and people were just like, hey, it's what I'm doing now. Hey, I'm gonna charge you for what I think I can deliver to you. This is the approach we're taking at this moment for OPJ NFTs. I think I can give you the value that I'm asking for, and let's make this a clean and even trade. That means that in 2023, where I think this goes, is 2023 becomes the year of value creation. This is the year where companies, projects, creators really pick their heads up and say, okay, I have a sense of this space now. I'm still here, and I'm going to use these NFTs, these tools, for what they are meant to be used for, which is to create a tremendous amount of value for an audience, for fans, so that they are more loyal to me and my brand, so that they will buy my lattes, they will buy my sweatshirts, they will buy my gin, whatever it is. It's about creating value first, or creating value that has maybe been promised. And that is where things get really exciting to my mind. So I think 2023 is actually going to be a great year, not because I think the macro environment is going to improve, not because I think there's not going to be a lot of pain still to be had, but because I think people are really now in the mode. If you were in this space, if you were thinking about this space, if you are still here, if you are a brand who is still here, you're really thinking about how can I drive value for the people that are here. And that is what we're going to see moving forward. So 2023 is the first year of it, but it's certainly going to be 2024, 2025. As the macro conditions improve, it's only going to get better. But let's talk specifically about some slightly more specific predictions of what the fallout from a value creation year, and maybe fallout not being the right word because that sounds negative, and I really do mean this positively, what that can mean. First, I think a big musician will roll out a blockchain-based fan club. And maybe several artists will do this, but I think bigger. Think names that folks really know, not necessarily just Web3 artists or sort of more niche, super into Web3 kinds of artists. I think you'll have a big name that will do something big with blockchain-based fan tokenized communities. And I've thought about music NFTs. What do I think is going to happen with music NFTs in 2023? I don't know. I think there's some momentum behind them, but I think there's still some core challenges to music NFTs in the traditional way that we're maybe defining them. But blockchain, again, value creation, creating value for fans, that's a no-brainer. And we're going to see more of that in really powerful ways in 2023. And again, I think there'll be a couple big name artists that are going to make an interesting play there where it really is about creating value for their fans and not just cash grab, not just taking from them, artists that really understand what this technology is about. Connected to that, I think we're going to see just more explosions, maybe a strong word, but let's say it, why not? More of an explosion in the phygital space. Why do people hate the word phygital so much? I really don't care. I don't have a strong opinion about it, but people freaking hate it, right? Whatever. We're going to see more in the phygital space when it comes to merch, when it comes to fans. I think the precursor to this is what G-Money is doing with 9DCC. You went to Art Basel, and at every turn you were tapping somebody's t-shirt to get their POAP. And that is just the beginning. I'm really excited when this merch will be an extension of a fan experience. You went to a particular concert, you got a particular sweatshirt, you tapped it, and that means now you get to watch exclusive behind the scenes footage from that particular concert that you attended. We're going to start to get that in 2023. And it doesn't have to be in music. I made the music prediction, obviously, just before this. This could be in sports. It could be in theater. I don't know. It could be in a couple different ways. But I think the playing around of how do we extend fan experiences using physical merch is a place things are going. And again, that's creating value for the fan. It's giving more value to the fan than they were previously getting when they were just buying a simple sweatshirt. My next prediction is that brands and creators, we will see more collaboration through airdrops. This is, to me, one of the most exciting facets of this space. And it's something I talked about with the Forum 3 team when we looked at what was going on with Starbucks. And I mentioned this in that podcast. But, the idea that, if Dunkin' Donuts wants to go steal Starbucks customers, they're going to airdrop them coupons or whatever it is. Like, that's amazing that's how Dunkin' may try and steal Starbucks customers. Of course, they're not realistically probably going to do that. But the point is, there's this paradigm shift where I think an old school way of thinking is, oh no, if you as Starbucks have a blockchain based and NFT community, now all your competitors can see who your consumers are and they can go steal those consumers. And it's like, well, they steal them by creating value for them. And it's value that's getting created for them because they were Starbucks consumers. And that has not unlocked in a lot of people's heads yet. But it will, and I think it will start to unlock in 2023. So some really big moments. I mean, I don't know, maybe Mariah Carey drops her next single to the world of women community. That is not the prediction I'm trying to make, but like I will stand by that as an idea. Or, Outdoor Voices drops a coupon for leggings to Nike wearable holders. I don't know. These are the themes though. I want to get one or two legitimate brands doing an airdrop to a creators community or a PFP community or another brand's community, because you're going to see a lot of that in the future. And I want it to start in 2023. That is creating value for holders. That is creating value for fans. And that's what I want to see. Finally, to shout out some specific projects, I think Doodles, Deadfellas, and Women in Weapons are going to have a good 2023. Those are 3 projects that I am excited for. I am bullish on. This is, of course, not financial advice. I don't know that the price of them is going to go up, but I think they are going to do cool and interesting things, and they are going to be as relevant, if not more relevant, in December of 2023 than they are as we sit here today in December of 2022. Hold me to it. We'll look back next year to see if I was right. I also think, next prediction, I think on the back of what Starbucks is doing, you are going to have another fast casual brand make a big loyalty play. Maybe it's Chipotle, maybe it's a 1-to-1 and it's Dunkin' Donuts, though I kind of think that's too almost obvious. So I think maybe it's a different fast casual play. And I think it's entirely possible that we have like several big companies. I think of the ones who have been in this space up to this point. I mean, Pepsi, some of the luxury car companies, Coach, like some of these big brands that have already started to make metaverse NFT plays, I think will go all in along the lines of what Starbucks is doing when it comes to like a loyalty program. And hell, it may even be done by Forum 3, but at a minimum, a big loyalty Starbucks style play on the back of what Starbucks is doing in 2023, because I think Starbucks is going to do a great job and it's going to inspire other brands to do the same. Though I think it'll take a while for consumers to really catch on to what's happening there. So I don't know if that'll happen in 2023, but another big brand entering in a big way, I'm excited for it. By and large, I think if you are somebody who likes just pure degen, volume trading, make a lot of money, flip something, 2023 is not going to be your year. You may not have a year like that really ever again to the level that we had it in 2021. So I think bad news if that's the kind of NFT player you are. But if you are somebody who is excited about the explosion of tokenized communities, of reshaping the web along lines of digital ownership and communities of value, 2023 is going to be a great year because there's going to be more of that, more substantive plays in that direction as we nevertheless battle rough macroeconomic conditions. But when we get on the other side of that, it's just going to be a moonshot to the place that we all want to see this go. And I'm excited for the journey.
COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses that need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage its treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the highly secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasury management to expressive, flexible, and multi-chain treasury features, such as global user management, global contacts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Masari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. You have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless. We're all bullish on NFTs, but gaining exposure to NFTs as a whole is difficult. How are you supposed to gain broad, generic exposure to an industry that's designed to be unique and non-fungible? CRYPTEX has the answer. CRYPTEX Finance produces synthetic tokens that lets you get exposure to areas of crypto that you otherwise couldn't. Their first product, TCAP, provides broad exposure to the total crypto market cap of all crypto assets. And their second product, JPEGZ, gives you the ability to get exposure to the entire NFT market. It's the first real NFT index token, so you don't have to go hunting for rares or finding under-the-radar opportunities. You just need to own some JPEGs, because JPEGZ tracks all NFT collections with real-time exposure. This is a first-of-a-kind product from CRYPTEX, who has worked in close collaboration with Chainlink for months to ensure accurate price feeds for true exposure. Live minting and trading of JPEGs will open at the end of Q4, so make sure you stay up to date with CRYPTEX Finance by joining their Discord, Telegram, or following them on Twitter.
Okay. Enough from me, enough of my 2023 predictions. It's time to turn to some of the friends of the pod to see what they have to say about predictions for 2023. So coming at you with some metaverse predictions, two friends of the pod. The first is Tom Bilyeu. You know him. You love him. If you did not listen to my episode with him this year, you got to. He is just such a gem in the space. And he's going to give us his prediction. And then Madi Lieber, who is one of my favorite humans. I think I give her an intro when I recorded with her, so I won't give her an intro here. I'll let it happen on the clip. But we're going to hear some metaverse-related predictions from the two of them right now.
Tom Bilyeu, what is your 2023 prediction for the NFT and beyond space?
All right, it's going to be all about spatial web. So we're going to have our 1,000 songs in a pocket moment where instead of talking about, TCP/IP, NFT, Web3, like protocols and blockchain speeds, we're going to talk about what are people really going to do and enjoy on the blockchain. And getting the first step into a true metaverse through this really high throughput pixel streaming that's now coming out with Improbable and some other companies working on it. I've seen the technology. It's up close. It's breathtaking. It's super smooth. And it allows you to use technology that already exists like LiDAR, motion capture, to create live 3D spaces where you can truly interact with other people in that space. Or not. You can just build the space out and treat it like a website that people can walk around like it's a game, literally with a controller or with a mouse and keyboard. People can navigate these spaces. And I think we're going to see people create some really incredible game-like experiences within these micro metaverses, but they're all using the same standards. And so that's where it's going to get interesting to see how they can connect to each other. And so I think you're going to see that people will make bridges where you can transition from one space to the other. And so I know there are people that are even working on tokens and things that you can use so that you can spend money no matter which one of these things that you're in, so that there becomes a real high degree of interoperability. So that's what I think is going to be the next big buzzword, are these interactive spatial web spaces.
One follow-up. Unreal underpins a lot of this, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
Is part of this on Unreal? Like, is Unreal going to create a wrapper for everything built in Unreal that just helps facilitate the interoperability between these kinds of experiences?
It's a great question whether Unreal will do anything to facilitate this, but all the guys that I've talked to anyway that are building these spatial web spaces, they're compatible with anything that kicks out an OBJ file. So Unity, Unreal for sure, those two do. So it'd be very easy. If you have a project already in Unreal, you can, according to the guy that I spoke to, in hours, you can port over all your files and be up and running. Now that's assuming obviously that you already have all your textures and characters and all that, because that stuff takes an ungodly amount of time. But if you have all that, he said you can import it right in. I haven't pushed them hard enough on how deep you can get into the AI, because you need characters to be able to react to you and all that stuff. He says you can, but I just know enough about Unreal. I don't see how it would just be a straight one-for-one. The art, yes, but the AI and all that logic, that doesn't strike me as being as easy. But leveraging their mechanics of moving around and interactions and that kind of thing, then it really would be applying the art and then mapping what you want to happen on click.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tom.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Now joining me for her prediction, friend of the pod, Madi Lieber. Friend of the pod, friend of Carly, Madi Lieber. She's the former COO of CRYPTEX. You were previous to that, you were at Google, then at Meta, and you are now helping to build a Web 2 brand. Are we allowed to say who the entrepreneur is? Like
El Cordero Grant, we're building a new female-founded by women for women energy drink company that will have a big Web3 component when it comes to rewards, membership, and returns.
Yeah, so excited to bring you on, because I know you're just like you're my friend who's like, did you see the latest like McKinsey report on what's happening? In line 6, I thought they got this point wrong, but I'm really excited about point 10 through 12, and I'm like, okay, cool, that's great. So you're just like very in touch with like metaverse and how brands are activating the metaverse, and now you are quite literally helping to build with a very like seasoned, has done the whole build a big brand in the Web 2 world thing. And now you're doing that with a heavy Web 3 component. So really excited to hear what you guys are thinking about for 2023 and what your 2023 prediction is. Hit us with it, Madi.
Yeah, I think particularly when it comes to, say, metaverse or extended reality activations, 2022 in some of 2021 was the like for funsies year, as I like to call it. And what I mean by that is people were just doing anything that they wanted to that seemed like a good buzzy PR moment. And that was really the approach, was if you're getting enough press coverage from what you're doing in the metaverse, you did a good job. And I think what we'll start to see in 2023 is that this is the year of like no longer an event or an activation is in and of itself a metaverse move. And instead, it really needs to be a true means to an end for like business value and have like a true value proposition for the business. So some of the things that I expect that we'll see more of are businesses using, let's say, like immersive worlds for their employee onboarding to build culture and actually conduct lessons for a hybrid workforce. Or even, as they're doing developmental training throughout the time of an employee's life cycle, teaching people really complex mechanical tasks with extended reality solutions, right? So you can envision somebody learning how to clean or fix like a car engine using an Oculus or like metaverse, right? To basically layer on an extended version of reality into what's in front of you. And then I think some of the more fun brands, so we're thinking like fashion and beauty brands, will continue to do somewhat for funsies things, but they won't just be Tommy Hilfiger creating a store in Decentraland and like nobody doing anything with it. Instead, it will be more of what we started to see from them towards the end of this year, which is like paired runway walks where you have a metaverse model paired with a real life model. And that's an added component of their existing fashion show programming. And I think that we'll start to see more and more brands moving in the direction of this being a layer over their existing operations rather than like a completely separate department. But I actually think that that's okay, right? Like that's what we want to see, because by adding these layers on that build true value for the business, eventually you will end up building out a separate department, right? Like that is how social media ended up becoming its own organizational layer for everybody, is because it had such immense value for the business that they needed to put their resourcing behind it.
Next up, and we're going to run these through back to back, boom, boom, boom. So I won't give each of them an introduction here. We're going to hear predictions from a number of friends of the pod starting now. And now Blake Finucane, Chief Strategy Officer at Emergent Games. She also runs an NFT fund for Emergent Games. She's been on the podcast many times. She is brilliant. Blake, hit me with your 2023 predictions.
My first prediction is really about kind of pure art projects. I think that when we look into 2023 macro conditions and just even the kind of micro conditions of the NFT market, people are really uncertain. And I think what pure art projects actually do and present to people, and when I say pure art projects, I mean artists making art projects, it's certain. There's certainty in this. When an artist releases a project, it is done. At its genesis is also when it's finished. There's no guessing of if a gaming studio is actually going to produce a game. There's no real kind of understanding if a studio is going to get funded or a project is going to get funded. I think there's going to be some stripping back and going back to, again, what NFTs were really meant to be in the first use case for them, at least in my opinion, which was supporting artists in their creations and making sure that they get paid royalties, that the provenance is tracked, and that they can actually take control over their artistic production. So for me, again, with that, I think generative art becomes really at the forefront of that. We saw that just lately in the last kind of 2 weeks with the 1337 Skull project being super interesting, kind of taking over OpenSea volume for the weekend. So I see that there's a lot of opportunity for new artists to kind of emerge, particularly in the generative space, but also the kind of blue chip artists who have been producing through the bear market that kind of, came up in the bull. People will be going back to them and actually buying their one-of-ones.
Next prediction.
I see, and I'm kind of seeing this in the tail end of 2022 as well, the kind of push and pull between indie games and then big kind of AAA games. When I say indie games, what they're focusing on is a really fun, short experience. They're not overstepping. They're not overshooting. They're creating these really small, kind of tight ecosystems with that, very cheap releases or, not big NFT sales. But what they're doing is they're drawing people in, and there's not as much pressure because they're not carrying a big team and a big development schedule. Now, just on top of that, I think what we're also seeing and what we're going to see more of is that with these games, whether big or small, we're going to see that NFTs play a very big role. They're very important, but they're not actually central to gameplay. And people will be wanting to get onboarded in, and game developers and game studios will want to onboard people outside of ownership and will want to get people into the game, which will then spur ownership on. So I think we'll see NFTs always being a very important layer, ownership being super, super key to creating stakes in the game and caring about the games that you're playing. But I think gameplay will develop as such that it'll be more about fun than really incorporating the NFTs.
Love it. And your third and final prediction is a fashion prediction, I understand?
Third and final, fashion. We need to always bring fashion into it. So
of course,
a lot of interesting fashion projects that are purely digital, I don't think have really hit. I don't think have really interested consumers and interested crypto people that much. The use cases are still not really there. Where I think we've seen the most success is that relationship between physical and digital. The idea of owning a piece of clothing and then having that give you access to something digitally, or the other way around, where you're able to get a t-shirt, get merch, whatever it is, and actually wear it around the conferences and then get a lot of attention for it, which everyone loves. And how can that actually come in again around the storytelling and lore of NFT projects? Can that be used in a more creative way than simply just selling merch? And pushing that relationship more. And I think we'll see some innovation there, whether that's new projects coming out or the big projects that we're always looking to, making sure that that relationship is kind of expanding and there's more utility on both sides when you're wearing it, as well as what you can do in the digital world.
Hi everyone, my name is Chika Uwazie and I am the co-founder of Afropolitan, and we are building the first network state for the African diaspora. My 2023 prediction is, number one, I feel that we're going to double down on NFTs. Even though we are in a bear market, we saw a huge surge of communities still building NFTs. And I feel that not only are we going to see people create their own NFT communities, but we're also going to see brands create different NFT communities, as well as organizations in Web2 using NFTs to create loyalty and to really understand their true 1,000 fans. My second thing that I see in 2023 is the rise of network states. Bilyeu dropped his book earlier this year called The Network State, and about 26 different organizations are building their own. But I also feel that we're also going to see countries who are looking to digitize their assets are going to look at how can we use the network state to create our own individual network stake in the future. But I also believe that NFT communities that are very strong are also going to look at the network state and see how can we use our current community to build something long-term like a network state.
Zack Guzman, founder of Coinage Media, friend of the pod. What is your 2023 prediction?
Carly, 2023 is going to be a bit of a carryover in 2022, I think. Everything that we've seen. The hangover. You ever had a bad hangover? I think it's going to be a hangover year. That's what we're looking at, I think.
So
I think
worse.
all of that. Yes.
The hangover is worse than the drinking part.
Well, 2022 certainly wasn't fun, so I don't think we got much of the fun drinking part either. So, yeah, I think a lot of the carryover, the shakeout still hasn't quite happened yet. But at the same time, hangovers don't last forever, I think, as we all know. So I think, somewhere in 2023, we could start to see a rebound, taking a bit of an Advil, if you will continue this metaphor with me, and then completely maybe turn around and get back out there to the bull run.
Is there a sector within the Web3 industry that you think will fare better than others?
It's interesting because we've seen these cycles before, but this one's unique in the sense that NFTs, yours included, have brought into the space a lot of people who may have never touched crypto before. It's something that we've seen at Coinage as well with our NFTs. A lot of the people who minted ours are first-time NFT holders. And I think that's one thing, people laugh at the Trump digital trading cards that came out, but it's like more and more people are being exposed to crypto in a way that didn't happen, I think when we got in, right, when it was just Bitcoin that kind of sucked you into the tent. And now there's all these different touch points. And I think that that's something that's kind of overlooked in the way that, we've been through these cycles, ups and downs before, but it's a little bit different now in terms of the stickiness. If you are brought in through maybe someone that you're a little bit more connected with, a creator you enjoy, or whatever it may be, there are more reasons now, I think, to maybe take a second look at crypto and people who maybe never thought about it before. And we're starting to see that a little bit more.
So that's bullish. Do you think 2023 will be a year where maybe macro markets are still ugly, but under the surface, you have more and more people owning NFTs, entering the space because of people or brands that they love?
Yeah, I think the power of NFTs have kind of separated us from the macro environment in some sense, right? You can still have collections that have incredible value, be underpriced, right? And you can have underpriced JPEGs, as the case may be. And you can see these things come out, and I think, people are getting savvier. I think, now's the time. Everyone always talks about like a stock picker's market, right? When things are down, that's the time to kind of figure out where the real value is. I feel like crypto's evolved enough, matured enough to the point where there's real value attached to a lot of these projects. Of course, there are still some hangover ones that don't really have too much value. But I think that that's the evolution we're coming into in 2023, where people can suss out and calculate, all right, where is the real value? What projects are actually doing real things like yours? And I think like Coinage Media, what we've kind of put out there as well, there are projects out there that do deliver on what they promised and do deliver real value out there.
Aside from Overpriced Gin and Coinage,
yes,
are there projects, tokens that you're particularly excited about or excited to see what they do in 2023?
There's another theme that I think is playing out now in the collapse of FTX, in the collapse of all these centralized lenders. DEXs are getting a lot more attention now in the aftermath of everything we've seen with centralized players. And THORChain is a project that I've seen and covered for a little bit. And it's kind of at the forefront of the idea of automated both sides, lending and borrowing. And they've rolled out some few new things, and DEXs are getting a lot more looks in the wake of all these collapses because they live up to crypto's values, right? The idea of automated true DeFi. And we've seen that with Uniswap, but what about chain-to-chain, cross-chain integrations? And so I think there's a lot more attention that's going to be thrown to DEXs. I think that might be the theme, getting back to crypto's core tenets, getting away from some of these centralized players that was never true to crypto's tenets in the first place. I think a lot of people knew that. But in 2023, that's a project and that's a theme I would keep my eyes on in terms of who can actually deliver on the end-all, be-all, decentralized exchange that gets back to kind of crypto's core tenets.
I am here with Shannon Snow, the COO of World of Women, veteran of the tech industry, master chief operating officer. What is your prediction for the NFT metaverse Web3 space in 2023?
I have two predictions. One, despite the cooling of the market, I do think that we're going to see some major licensing deals, even though there's a lot of talk about the market going down. What I see is that many brands are still really interested in partnering with the Web3 space and the Web3 communities. And so I think we'll still see incredible licensing deals coming out from the top projects. Second thing I think is during these winter times, I think you also really support each other. I think, we're recording this at Art Basel, at the end of 2022. And I think what's been really cool is that despite the market cooling, every project is so supportive. Yem and I were just on the Yuga podcast. We stopped by the Doodles event. Julian was so welcoming for us. Like Gary Vee came by the WoW party and the WoW gala. And I just see this really strong sense of support and conviction in this space. And so I think my call for everyone in 2023 is let's help each other, not tear each other apart. And I think it's going to come true.
Thank you, Shannon. And finally, best for last, as always, my best friend of the pod, Zeneca, and I chop it up a little bit about what 2023 might look like in Zeneca's 2023 predictions. Let's talk about next year. Mm-hmm. You have a handful of predictions for us, or one or two or three, whatever you got for 2023 crypto, Web3, NFT markets. What do you think?
Generative art is going to have another great... Honestly,
Can it be called a resurgence? Don't call it a comeback. We've been here before. It doesn't get to be a resurgence if it just stays
It's
hot.
just going to strength over strength. I think I really like. There's more people falling in love with Gen Art. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening there. There's a lot of major platforms doing infrastructure improvements. They've hired great people. They're building out. There's traditional museums and galleries showing increasing interest in it. And yeah, that I don't have to say much more. It's just I'm wearing the hat and the shirt. It's Maxi, Artblocks, FX Hash, GMDAO, all of that stuff. AI is going to take over. I think this is the biggest just thing. I think is we're like barely scratching the surface now and this is not even an NFT specific thing. This is just a world thing where more and more people are just going to use AI. Well, I mean, I think AI art is a more of an NFT related thing where now so many people can create beautiful art and just now music as well and code and just everything. I think AI is just going to dominate almost just so much in the next 12 months, and especially in the next like 3 years. Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with AI art. Soulbound tokens we mentioned on the last episode. I think we've seen a few instances of them, and we're going to see more. I think they're really powerful, and yeah, more projects will innovate with them. We have ours coming out. I think Somi from Impeak has one coming out. A lot of people are experimenting with them. I think they're really a cool way to remove the speculative nature to NFTs, but remain with leave the utility. You can still do the stuff without having people gamble and treat them like poker chips, which is it has its pluses and minuses. But I think that there's a time and a place for them. And sort of like in parallel to that, subscription models, and this is something again we spoke about yesterday. As more and more projects realize how unsustainable the business model is of one NFT launch and raise some money and then just like provide utility for 8,000 years in the future and forever and ever and ever. Subscription models, like the software industry went through this whole thing, and I think now the NFT industry is going through it, which is, I think there's definitely a place for lifetime NFTs, but I think it's like a hybrid where you have some supply and then the majority comes through. Like maybe it's like a Kickstarter model where the people that support you early get your company started, they get lifetime access, but you need to expand your market and have ongoing revenue through subscription models and stuff like that. So,
is there a platform you think that's doing subscription for NFTs, crypto that you've used or tech that's being built on that? Because I've talked about this in the pod for months and months. I feel like at this point, like I totally agree. But I think it's partly a tech challenge that isn't insurmountable. It just has to be done.
Yeah. So there's Unlock Protocol, which is doing some interesting stuff, but I don't think it's perfect. And there's actually a member in Zen Academy who has been working with devs and built out her own thing. So I can't remember exactly how it works or the name of it, but I can let you know afterwards. And maybe we add it in the show notes, or I don't know if it's out yet. But there's definitely people working on figuring out how to make it work in a very reasonable and sensible way. But yeah, I think, what do we have? AI, Gen Art. Oh, social audio. That's another big thing, which is having a moment. Like, obviously, Clubhouse started off a lot of this stuff, and then Twitter Spaces have been a big thing. I think we're seeing a lot more shows gain in popularity as Discord wanes in like popularity and attention is fading. It's a lot easier to just tune into a Twitter Space and hang out and listen rather than have to read chat. And we're launching our daily Twitter Space in the new year. Ryan Carson launched his daily Dose Space a couple months ago. He has like thousands of people turning up every day. Obviously, the Nifty Morning Show, Rug Radio. There's a lot of social audio on Twitter, and LinkedIn recently launched social audio. More people are launching podcasts. More people are listening to podcasts. Content in general, I think, is king, queen.
Everything's a media company first.
Yeah.
Great. I love it. AI, generative art, soulbound tokens,
subscription
revenue,
social audio, and generative art again for good measure. Tripling down.
Thank you for those 6 predictions, Zeneca. Thank you to everyone who gave a prediction this year for 2023. Thank you to everyone who gave a prediction last year for me for 2022. I'm still going to be here in December of 2023. So we're going to be looking back at these predictions next year. And hopefully we'll be looking ahead at 2024 being like, relief is on the horizon. If all of 2023 was still a rough year, we'll be looking at 2024 being like, all right, we really feel like the end of the bear is nearing and rates are stabilizing and inflation is stabilizing. And hopefully that happens in 2023. But if not, it'll hopefully happen in the early half of 2024. And to all of you, just like, thank you so much for listening to the show, for sticking this out with me during weird and tumultuous times. I hope you stick with us in next year, and we have some really fun things in store. So stay tuned, keep listening, and I just appreciate the heck out of everyone who listens to this show. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.